On the left is a woman named Activist Mommy. On the right is Kirk Cameron. He is a famous child actor from the movie or from the TV show Growing Pains. I've never watched it, but let's give this a listen, see what he had to say for himself. It's absolutely wild. Also on the left, Elizabeth Johnston, Activist Mommy. I have a back catalog of things that she's said that are, I don't even know what word to use, just crazy, absolutely nuts.
Imagine that you had your kids all across the nation, and parents are complaining that their girls are coming home and their boys are drug dealers. And you say, we need to really stop this. This is really...
He's drawing out a hypothetical situation as though it's real. He says, imagine that this is happening. Does he think this is happening? If not, then what is he complaining about?
It's terrible. And then we find out, well, how is this happening? Well, all of us are paying to send them to schools that teach them how to be and drug dealers. Well, look.
So he said, imagine this at the beginning. What he meant was, this is happening.
This, at the end of the day, is happening on our watch, and it's being funded.
I told you. Oh my God, dude. The mask comes off like nearly immediately. So kids are being taught to be drug dealers, is what you're telling me? What grade do you think they start stripping classes in his mind? The answer is they don't, of course. But he has this very specific idea about society and about schools that does not comport with reality. This might be one of my favorite clips of nutcases saying nutty stuff right here. This is Doug Mastriano, ran for governor in Pennsylvania, lost, luckily. Listen to what he said about elementary schools.
On day one, the sexualization of our kids, pole dancing, and all this other crap that's going on will be forbidden in our schools.
Pole dancing in schools. People clapping for this like it's happening. You know, I don't need to defend anything. I'm not going to defend anything like this. I'm not defending pole dancing in schools. I'm not defending the idea that, like, trans people are secretly grooming children or whatever, because it's fake. I'm just going to say it's not happening. I don't stand for anybody indoctrinating anybody. Don't defend this. Point out that it's fabricated, fictitious.
On day one, all the graphic books that are in elementary schools will be pulled out.
He thinks that they're doing pole dancing in elementary schools and that they're teaching kids, or that they're giving them, like, books with questionable material in them. Like, everybody all along the chain in this, like, link of evangelical Republican Christianity is either lying intentionally or so diluted that they can't see straight anymore. Which is it with Kirk Cameron? Is he, like, a genuine believer? I don't think Doug Mastriano is a genuine believer. I think that he was making that shit up intentionally to try to get additional support, additional votes. Kirk Cameron, though, is he a believer? I don't know. I think it's a mix with most people, Kirk Cameron included. I think that these people largely do believe the things that they say, but they will embellish and exaggerate and make it, like, way more extreme and nutty to convince additional people that wouldn't otherwise be convinced because their whole position is built on sand.
By the parents. We're sending our kids to public schools where they're learning how to hate God. They're learning how to hate the country. They're learning how to adopt a set of values that calls good evil and evil good, and boys can be girls and girls can be boys. It does.
Like, what school is he talking about? Tell me where this happened and to what student specifically. Give me specific information here.
It's no good to complain about it. What we need to do is replace it with the set of values that leads to health and success. And we as adults have to begin to do this in our own lives and our own communities. So, yes, Scholastic is wicked. Yes, you have all this nasty stuff. But if we outsource our parenting because it's easier, or we believe the lie that we're not qualified experts to educate our kids, so we have to. But here's the deal. Whoever wants the next generation the most is going to get them.
That's
and if
right.
you will tell the stories to the children, you will shape their ideas of what is good and evil. We have to subcontract our parenting and discipleship out to the government.
You can disciple your kids to your heart's content. That's not what he wants, though. See, he doesn't want to, like, get the schools to parent his kids for him. He wants the schools to impose his beliefs on your kids. If he wanted his kids to know this stuff, he could teach them easily. He's trying to force these beliefs on others. Don't let him flip this around like this is a parents' rights thing. Like, oh, he just wants his kids to be raised this way. No, he wants your kids to be raised this way by force, because the government is, school is mandatory. You must show up and listen to what the teacher says. And if you don't, you'll go to jail, or your parents will go to jail. Somebody will go to jail if they absolutely refuse to send you to school. It's compulsory. And he wants to fit into that compulsory scheme religion. He wants to force people, or force children to learn about his version of Christianity. That's what's happening.
We're going to have little kids that come back as little Marxists, little statists, little atheists, drag queens, strippers, drug dealers, and you name it. So that's why we got to
Okay, but that's not happening.
do what we're doing. And we need to support the people that are really leaning into that. There's
Yes.
a million ministries, million churches out there. There's great companies like Brave Books and others. So support these people.
Yes.
And get these kinds of stories. Read them to your children and your grandchildren. Pull your kids out of the schools that are teaching your kids bad things and put them into places that teach them good things.
Wow, that's fascinating. So he doesn't even want his kids to be subjected to these new laws that he's trying to create. He just wants your kids to, because he knows he can put his kids in private school. He's encouraging others to, if not private school, homeschool their kids. He doesn't want his little group's kids in public schools, but he's still trying to pass public school policy that will impose indoctrination on children. Isn't that interesting?
Consider homeschooling. Consider private school. Consider a church that has educational co-ops. There's so many opportunities, and we just don't have time to play games and the
That's right. Yeah. We're not just going to whine about it. We're going to do something about it.
Dude, I don't know who edited this video, but it's really bad.
And that's why you and I both have authored these books with Brave Books. Do you have your book there in front of you that you could
I
pull up
don't
on the
have it.
screen?
No,
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me.
That's
But you
fine.
can check
We'll
it
put
out.
in the show notes. The name of mine is Little Lives Matter, and it's a pro-life children's book.
Oh, yeah. I read that one on my Owen Morgan Unfiltered. No, I'm sorry. My Owen Morgan Reads YouTube channel also. I might have read that on my main channel. I don't remember. But if you want to see it, it's up there. You can just search it up. Little Lives Matter, Owen Morgan, probably in the YouTube search. Pull it up. It's, in the words of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister. Let me find the quote. There's a historian Q&A on PBS website, pbs.org, the man behind Hitler, about Goebbels, his propaganda minister. And here's what this guy said, this historian. He says, Goebbels also knew that people wanted to be entertained and not harangued. Propaganda had to be subtly packaged if it were to be digestible. So Hitler eventually banned a bunch of newspapers and press and stuff, forbid people from listening to it, and created his own media, his own radio show. And you were basically required to listen to the radio show every day or every week or whenever it was. But it couldn't be boring. It had to be entertaining, or the people would become kind of discouraged, unhappy. They wanted to keep it upbeat and fun and interesting. It says, this caused Adolf Hitler to complain bitterly that German culture under Goebbels' aegis was not nearly National Socialist enough, or Nazi, not nearly Nazi enough, and that the propaganda minister was more concerned with box office returns than with ideology. And of course, the effectiveness of propaganda is very difficult to assess. I guess the effectiveness of any specific given propaganda is difficult to assess, but it very definitely does affect people. It's pretty clear. Anyway, that's Goebbels' whole strategy. It was to subtly, carefully, slowly introduce these ideas in a non-abrasive way and shoot down the enemy's ideas. And that's really what her book is all about. Her Little Lives Matter book. It starts with a premise and then tells a basic story that's not abrasive or harmful or whatever at its face, but it's programming in kind of an ideal, a mindset into people.
The name of mine is Little Lives Matter, and it's a pro-life children's book. And
Oh,
the name
man,
of
you wrote that? That's
yes,
wonderful. We just made an episode of our new television show for kids called The Adventures with Iggy and Mr Kirk.
yes.
And I believe that's going to be our very first episode. It's
Oh,
a beautiful
yay.
story. And my little green iguana buddy, Iggy, he's learning to take care of these little tiny unborn lives
Wow.
that are living
Oh my God, dude.
inside of these little bird eggs.
See what I'm saying? It's subtle. Yeah, people take care of bird eggs. That's not abrasive or weird or whatever. It's very non-confrontational and subtle. It's almost like you can't even tell it's there, but you're building in assumptions. You're forcing people to accept premises by simply picking up the book in the first place or watching the TV show. It's all part of how propaganda works.
And when
That's
they
so
hatch,
precious.
he can't believe it. Oh, it's
Yeah.
a great episode, and it features your book.
Wow, that's awesome. I had no idea. So I learned something new. Well, this brings me to another controversial topic, and it is the education system as a whole in America. And I'm just going to ask it. Are we outsourcing parenting in America? And if so, what are the consequences?
Not everybody, certainly not everybody. And thank you, everyone who's not sending your children to a public school 7-8 hours a day. God bless the single moms and the single dads out there who feel like,
Wow. So he's saying that, like, outright, like, you should not be putting your kids in public schools. He does not want you putting kids in schools. But he's trying to change public school policy. Isn't that fascinating? This is very clearly him advocating for imposing beliefs on other people's kids other than the Christian kids, right?
I don't have a support system. They're saying, I don't want this. I don't want what's happening to my kids out there. I'm trying to counteract it by taking them to church or reading them. But listen, if our kids go somewhere for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, and they have homework after that, on top of that, and we're putting our kids through a 9-hour, 5-day-a-week program, that's a full-on discipleship program. That's a full brainwashing of our children.
You mean teaching them to read and write? Are you serious? You know, I keep coming back to like Germany in the 20s and 30s because that's what I'm focusing on right now in research and things. I'm reading a book about it. When shit hit the fan, when the Nazi Party was growing, to my surprise, and many historians' surprise, I'm not a historian, but to many historians' surprise, teachers disproportionately supported the Nazi Party. I was kind of blown away by that. And at a certain point, like literally everybody supported the Nazi Party, not because they wanted to necessarily, but because they had no choice. Or you go to a concentration camp, that kind of thing. So anyway, when shit really hit the fan and people were like expressing their Nazi beliefs and ideals and everything openly and literally nothing else, teachers of the era still specifically said, we need to stop teaching students so much about Nazi culture, and we need to put more time into teaching them arithmetic, the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, because kids are not going to be successful in life. We're not going to be able to like discover general relativity or build out our own mathematics or science. Really, that's what the Nazis were trying to do. Or chemistry or whatever. We're not going to be able to do that stuff unless the kids are well educated. So this group of Nazi teachers, or teachers who at least were not openly oppositional, couldn't be, pushed Hitler to reform the curriculum to focus more on like education, because it would have been more beneficial to Germany to do so. What Kirk Cameron is doing here is going down this same rabbit hole that Hitler went down when he was trying to like indoctrinate all of the children, which is cutting education out of the educational system and replacing it with Nazi indoctrination. Any amount of time doing this at all will produce results that show why this is a bad idea. The kids that are homeschooled and taught all of this nonsense by these people, rather than teaching them how to read and write and do math well, those kids are inevitably doomed to have harder lives because of it, to live difficult lives where they struggled to get good jobs, where they struggled to make discoveries or participate in the rest of society. It worked out reasonably well for the Nazis because the Nazi control only really existed from 1933 to 1945. Like, there's one generation of students, basically, who lost their education to Nazi indoctrination. There were still a lot of older people between the ages of, like, 25 and 70 who were still very well educated by the previous system that existed, like, before it went Nazi, basically. But Germany discovered how harmful it is to do this eventually.
And to try to undo that with an hour of youth group on Wednesday night and maybe a church service in the morning, a little prayer at night, it's just not feasible. So I think if we first turn our minds around and say, wait a minute, God gave children to parents for a reason, because you love them most. And you
Well, I thought it was because they were the ones that can birth the children. Okay. News to me. My mistake.
are the ones that he talked to in Deuteronomy chapter 6, where Moses said to the people of Israel, he said, these commandments that I'm giving you today, download these into your heart. Live
Did the word download exist at the time?
them out yourself, and then teach them diligently to your children. So who's the
Like, I don't understand why they keep bringing up the 10 Commandments or the Mosaic Law at all. Why do they keep talking about those things? Christians aren't supposed to follow that today, are they? I thought that Jesus made 2 new commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself and love God with your whole heart, mind, soul, body, and strength, or whatever. Right? Why are they talking about this?
who's the teacher in that little equation? Moms and dad. And you teach it to them when they rise up out of their chair, when they're sitting down in your house, when they're walking along the way, and when they go to sleep at night.
Right.
So if we
Inundate them with indoctrination is what he's saying. Again, I go back to the fact that this is a strategy that Hitler used and found that it did not work well at all. It came to the point in Germany where, like, the kids were basically being part of the Hitler Youth was maybe not a legal requirement necessarily, but it was a cultural requirement, and you couldn't get a job unless you were part of the Hitler Youth. It was like the Boy Scouts, kind of. And if you were part of the Hitler Youth, then attending certain meetings, ceremonies, special anniversaries or whatever was kind of mandatory. And they'd pull you out of class a lot to attend this stuff. And literally every single person would go because you can't not be a member, basically. Everybody would go to these things, and it was sucking up so much of their time that they weren't getting home until like 6, 7 o'clock at night, and they were getting there at like 8 a.m., 7 a.m. You know, they had almost zero time to themselves or even to learn. They had no time for anything at all, which, again, for better or worse, I mean, there are arguments about it, but it's going to end badly. It's not going to be productive for you, for the person who's trying to enact these policies. It's just not.
We give our children to go and learn the opposite of godly values 9 hours a day, we're essentially...
Well, like, no one's learning the opposite of godly values. They're just not learning godly values at school.
allowing the enemy to disciple and evangelize our children away from us, away from God, and away from the principles that make for a good country. So we got to pull them out of that.
Yeah.
What principles does he think make for a good country exactly, I wonder?
Unfortunately, even my father is, I should say this. Unfortunately, I think the system is irredeemable. There are wonderful teachers in the public school system. My father is one of them. My grandparents are one of them. I know many wonderful teachers. God bless you for being a light in the darkness. However, you are totally hamstrung and hogtied by the people who write your paycheck.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way up to an agenda to indoctrinate all of the children. And
What's with all the pork analogies? Hamstrung and hogtied? I prefer hogstrung and ham-tied personally.
And it's just a matter of time before your sweet little school has to bow the knee. So what do? Guess what? Lots of teachers are exiting the public school system, and they're becoming teachers for homeschool co-ops and homeschool networks. And
Perfect. I love it. I love everything about it. Get the out of the school system if you share these ideals and beliefs with this guy. You shouldn't be in there. Again, disproportionate number of teachers supported Hitler in Germany throughout the Nazi era before it was even like a requirement. Like they chose to because they liked Hitler. That's it. Weirdly. I don't understand why that happened, but this is not a problem that's happening in school where teachers are like indoctrinating kids to do any whatever. It's not happening. This is a fabrication in his head, and he's using it as the basis to like whip people into a blood frenzy and encourage them to do what he wants them to do, which is to indoctrinate kids if you can in school. Like if you work for the school, you should be indoctrinating kids. And ideally, get out of the school system. That's fascinating. Output. Jesus did not replace the 10 Commandments. He's asked which commandment is the most, and that was his answer. The most important, I think it says. Okay? To my knowledge, I think that Jesus said that he came to fulfill the law, because saying I'm abolishing the law would be too abrasive to a group of Jews. But after Jesus died, Paul specifically said in Galatians 5 that people shouldn't be following the old law. People should be, if you follow one commandment from the old law, then you have to follow all of them. If you get circumcised, then you have to, rest on the Sabbath and do all the other shit that comes along with it. The goal was to separate Christianity from the rest of Judaism. They didn't want it to be a Jewish religion. So I guess you could say that Jesus didn't say that he was going to erase the law and replace it, but that was effectively what happened. That was the end result.
In private school networks. And so now the resources outside of public school are rich. Find a group of people, go online and check them out, go to your church. We cannot give up the education of our children.
Yes, yes. Now, Kirk, we've been talking about the problem a lot, and we've been talking.
I believe homeschooling should be illegal in all cases, but if somebody wants to homeschool their kid, then it should be reviewed by a board of scientists, educators, whatever, experts in early childhood development. And if there's like if this kid has like Down syndrome or some serious condition that requires more attention that cannot be provided by schools, then I guess I'm okay with homeschooling if the mom or the dad or whoever is teaching the kid, if the parent proves that they're capable of teaching the kid by showing the lesson plans that they'll use and everything, then I guess I'd be okay with it in that case. Preferably if the person is like, you know what, I think I'm opposed to homeschooling always, but I'm okay with some private schools for high needs kids. I'd be okay with that, I suppose. Heavily regulated private schools for high needs kids that are government subsidized. Or even better, just public schools where kids with high needs attend. That would be an ideal scenario, I suppose. I believe homeschooling is abuse, personally. I was a homeschool kid. It's abuse.
Now, Kirk, we've been talking about the problem a lot, and we've been talking about homeschooling a lot. And I want to pivot more into a couple questions. I only have you for a few more moments about parenting. And I want to ask you, what are some practical ways that we as parents, and with it not being homeschool your kids, obviously, but what are some practical ways that we can build strong, close families and relationships with our children? What does that look like in your family?
Here's some foundational principles that I've learned from the scriptures and from mentors, pastors, teachers that I really respect. Number one, be the kind of person that you want your children to become.
Yes.
I think more is caught than taught. There are a lot of people who can point back to parents who told them one thing, but then the parents did a different thing.
Yes.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Right.
If you want your children to grow up with a sense of gratitude for their parents and their children, then you know what? Treat your own parents with respect. Don't whine and cry.
Okay, I agree. I can accept that. This is like, oh my God, I got something in my eye. It's driving me nuts. This is one of the big tactics on the right, portraying situations in ways that they are just that they aren't, trans people are trying to like convert your children to be trans or whatever, for example, saying those types of things, and also slipping in shit that is not realistic on yours. Like, we just want to teach kids how to read and write, and we feel like they're being indoctrinated or whatever. That's not happening either. And deny all of the crazy shit that you want to do or downplay it heavily. They can never just own their goals. Like Kirk Cameron, he can never just own what he wants to do, which is indoctrinate children heavily. You can't just say that. Yeah, I want to brainwash children into doing what I want them to do or whatever, into believing by, my belief system. Just say that. Be honest. Own your ideas, What are you afraid of if you think that this is the right thing to do?
Criticize and complain. If you want your children to have a strong faith in God, let them seeing you hit your knees in genuine repentance.
So all of the things that he complains about are fake. They're like hyperbolic and insane. And all the things that he wants to do are veiled in reasonable language like this right here. Just be a mentor to your kid. Just show your kid how good of a person you are. Yeah, okay. Like literally every single human being alive agrees with that. Yeah, you should be a model for your kids. But in this discussion, he's implicitly saying the left is not doing that. It's the right that's trying to fix this problem of degeneracy or whatever.
To have a strong faith in God. Let them seeing you hit your knees in genuine repentance and confession of your sin and to your spouse.
God, these people are so cringy.
When you speak unkindly to them, show them what repentance actually looks like.
Yeah.
So that they can say, oh, I know I did a bad thing. I know how to go to God. I know how to go to my wife and say, I'm sorry. I know how to go to my children and say, will you forgive me? Why? Because I saw my dad do it. I saw my mom do it growing up. Be a portrait of the desired destination.
I agree.
Let your kids see.
Oops, sorry. I agree. That's fantastic. That's really good news. That's really good advice. But see, that's not the thing that I disagree with. It's his indoctrination plans for your kids, not his, because they're homeschooled, for yours.
It. And then number two, I would say, stay in relationship with them no matter what. If your kid gets a DUI, if your kid gets F's on his report card, if your kid talks back to you and won't clean up his room, don't X him out and cut him off simply because he's not performing. What if God treated you that way based on your performance? You wouldn't want
Dude, I love it. Yes, absolutely. Again, not the stuff I disagree with from him.
that. Not on your best day.
Yeah.
We've got to understand that God placed our children in our life according to his wisdom. We need them, they need us, and we need to love them the way God loves us. And that is simply because God put them in our life and they're our child. And so don't burn the relationship because they're not behaving the way that you want. And then thirdly, train them with the word of God. Don't let Siri and Alexa and Google train your kids.
Wait a minute. Do you think that Siri and Alexa and Google have a homeschool curriculum or whatever?
Don't put them in front of TV shows and don't send them to the youth pastor in the church to get your kids morals and the gospel.
Why not? I'm actually surprised he would say that. Oh my God, dude, I need some eye drops. This is driving me crazy. My eyes are like super dry.
You need to give them the only authoritative source of truth, and that is the word of God. And that combined with a praying, faithful mom or a dad, or better yet, both, the devil and all the forces of darkness and hell together don't stand a chance to stop your child from advancing the kingdom of God.
So
nothing stands a chance of deprogramming that brainwashing.
good, Kirk. Yes, that's it. You and I both have adult children, Kirk, and I have 10 children. 5 of mine are
oh my God, 10 children? Are you serious?
Have adult children, Kirk, and I have 10 children. 5 of mine are adults. My 6th is about to reach.
Look, dude, the guy didn't even blink an eye at that. He's got a stone cold stare when she says, I have 10 kids. That is so many kids. That's too many.
And I have 10 children. 5 of mine are adults. My 6th is about to reach adulthood. And I want to speak to parents with adult or soon to be adult children for a moment. When our children are little and we can, childproof our home and buckle them into car seats and keep them safe in a crib, it's completely different. And as our children grow up, we have both experienced that your relationship with them shifts. And I struggled with that shift, if I'm honest, with my first child. You know, she was unfortunately my practice round, poor thing. And I've seen a lot of other parents struggle with this transition. What wisdom do you have to share with parents who are launching children into adulthood?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I'm learning by doing. As this is on
Same.
the job training for me and for my wife. But my wife,
Yeah, that's every parent. They say you mess up on the first kid every time. I don't, there are decisions that I would make differently with the next kid. Like, I'm not going to ever spank my kid, ever. And I did that originally, I thought it was the right thing to do at the time. And it took me a while to realize that that's actually not productive. It's counterproductive. So, for example, those are the types of things that I would avoid in the future. But yeah, it is like an on-the-job kind of learning experience.
is just so much better at this than I am. She's so good, and so often I watch and I learn and I value the fact that she always puts relationship above performance. She values the things that God values. She reminds me all the time, our kids are works in progress. We can't be putting inspection stickers on them, like pass fail stickers. You remember that great Punchinello book by Max Lucado, like back in the 90s or the early 2000s?
No.
Punchinello, and then everybody walked around with these stars or these dots, and you wanted the star but you didn't want the dots. Everyone's inspecting each other and evaluating each other based on how talented you are, how pretty you are, how smart.
Okay, I'm so lost in this like analogy or whatever, this example he's giving.
You are. And we've got to remember that our children are works in progress just like we are. They're trying to make their way into the world as adults. And we start by walking in front of our children, holding their hands, helping them walk. And then we shift to walking alongside of them. And then they're going to go right out in front of us. And we're going to send them, we're going to send them out the door. And we're going to send them out into the world. I am cheering you on.
Dude, the editing is so bad on this. Like, she's cutting out whole words and like getting into the conversation like halfway through words.
Refuge that you can always count on to be here for you. And I'm a source of wisdom that you can always draw from. And that's hard because we want to be their protectors and their providers. We want to make the decisions for them so that they don't get hurt. But at the end of the day, they've got to be fully functioning adult humans. And God helps us along the way. A lot of prayer has been a main ingredient for us.
Yes.
And we're seeing the fruit of the seeds that we planted when they were little. So I would say, parents, just hang in there. Wait, just wait on the Lord. And
Tell you what, man, seeds definitely sprout if you plant seeds in kids early. Like, I taught my kid the rules of algebra. I'm not even sure if like she was old enough, like if her brain was developed enough at the time to fully comprehend the rules or what was happening, like logically. But I taught her that if you remove something from one side, you have to remove it from the other and things like that, just the general rules. And it seemed to stick because now she gets like really good grades in math. So if you teach your kid these things and get them like interested and invested in certain like areas of education, it will eventually pay off in like their interest in these subjects. So reading to your kid, I can't express to you how important it is to read to your kid and to just kind of do fun little math equations. Like, let them stay up an extra like 10 minutes or something for every math equation that they solve, just every algebra equation when they're like 7 or 8. That's what I did.
Beginning to see the new growth in my children because of the hard things that they're going through. They've got to deal with it. They've got to experience it, and they've got to get their own roots. As they grow with God.
Yeah, it's been one of the most challenging things for me to accept is that I have to allow my children to get hurt sometimes, and that is where usually there's exponential growth is in the process of them having to navigate adulting. So That's so excellent. As we close, Kirk, I just want to make sure that everyone watching and listening knows how to be a part of See You
Yep.
at the Library Day, since that is something that is just around the corner. So tell us what we need to know about that.
Oh my God. Oh, I thought, what happened to libraries not allowing you to be like part of their program or whatever? What happened? I thought libraries were denying you.
Go to bravebooks.com, and you can just click on the tab right there, See You at the Library, go to the map,
Okay.
find a story hour near you. If you don't see one, start one. Host
Yes.
a story hour. You can fill out the form. We'll show you how to do it. We'll send you a story hour toolkit, which has the books to read, has the songs to sing, it has the flags to wave, the posters, the bookmarks. It'll make it a smash
Songs to sing and flags to wave. Okay.
hit. Go to
Yeah.
bravebooks.com and support them as a company, because these are one of the good guys. Pro-America,
Yeah, I believe that Kirk Cameron started Brave Books. I could be wrong.
pro-constitutional values, and we need to get behind
Pro-life.
everything they do.
Pro-family, pro-free speech. We could go on, all the things.
I mean, in reality, they're not actually pro any of those things. Being pro-life, they're in favor of the death penalty, for example. That's not pro-life. Pro-free speech? No, they're not. These people. She just complained about scholastic books being in libraries. Said she wants to pull them out. You know, everything that they list is a fabrication. I don't know why they're not just like honest about their interests and beliefs. You own it. If you believe that, like, I don't know, Nazis should come to power or whatever, just own it. Own it. I'm not saying that they do believe these things, but don't hide behind these ridiculous, like, platitudes and try to convince people that you're not this way or whatever. It's just nonsense. Are you, like, afraid? What's going on?
That we want to pass down to our children.
That's
and
right.
reading has become a lost art that we want to revive again as well. So,
Well, I can't wait for you to see the episode of Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk. And what's so beautiful about this is that it gives a nostalgic nod to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Sesame Street. And it's just absolutely adorable and inspiring. And I can't wait for people to see.
I prefer the word adorbs, thank you very much. And no, it's propaganda. Again, like, Goebbels' goal with propaganda was to make it impossible to tell what's a lie and what's truth. Like, make it so subtle that it's still super entertaining to people. Like, 10% of the message is propaganda. Everything else is just like normal entertainment. So that's what we're seeing with this.
See it.
I love it, Kirk. I just had a reel go viral where I was just reacting to a Mr. Rogers clip where he was talking about boys are boys and you can't change that. And girls
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, hang on. Elizabeth Johnston, Mr. Rogers, reel about boys are boys. I'm going to have to look that up later.
I saw that clip. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kirk, thank you so much. I know you got to run. I appreciate you being a part of the Elizabeth Johnston podcast. God bless you and everything that you're doing. We appreciate your stand for family values.
Thanks, Elizabeth. God bless you too. Have a great day.
If you were blessed by this podcast,
No, I wasn't, but thank you so much for your offer on whatever the hell you're selling here. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. These people are insane. Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. OwenMorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability.